So I'm Stephanie Nash, and I am here talking with Loch Kelly. Hi, Loch.
Hey, how are you doing, Stephanie?
I'm doing good.
Good to see you.
We met at the International Dharma Teacher Gathering.
That's right.
Right? I remember you swimming in the pond in the lake in the morning. And he did a wonderful workshop there that gave a couple exercises I really liked and I used for the next year. I come from Shenzhen, and it kind of used some of his things, but in another neat, simple, direct way I liked a lot. Yeah. And we're in LA now.
Yes.
And Loch just did a workshop that I attended yesterday, and we thought we would talk about that and stuff. I do want to say the workshop was offered by Compassion LA.
Yeah.
And it's a group here that offers workshops that work with compassion and awakening wisdom workshops. Mm-hmm. And their website is compassionla.org. Yeah. So there's my plug for the people who brought him here, and thank you to them for that work.
Thank you.
And so I just wanted to talk to you about what it is we were doing yesterday with these exercises. I'm intrigued by your style of direct. You're not telling people to go off and meditate for 10 hours and maybe at some point you can reach nirvana or samadhi or oneness with the universe. Yes. Yeah. You have some really interesting exercises and that work with open-hearted. Now what is open-hearted?
Yeah, so open-hearted awareness. So the nonprofit institute that I'm part of is Open-Hearted Awareness Institute.
So, do they have a .com or .org?
We have a website that's under effortlessmindfulness.org or lochkelly.org.
I like effortless mindfulness.
Yes.
I like anything effortless.
Yeah. Yeah. So the effortless is not that you make no effort, but that you discover that there's an awareness that's already effortlessly aware. And that, I think, is kind of the missing piece in the map in Western culture, and is often in even Buddhism and other meditation systems. It's put off into kind of an esoteric, or, well, you really can't access that immediately, you gotta wait, 3 years, 30 years, 3 lifetimes.
Yeah, as you say, a few lifetimes later.
Meanwhile, those who do have an awakening, whether it's intentional or unintentional, report back to us that it's already here and it's already available within us. So that's the premise that I was told, and then as a curious, American New Yorker, kind of said well, wait a minute then. If it's already here and it's accessible, let's check it out. Let's see if we can. Are there, groups and approaches and people and teachings that start or do a little more of accessing this, recognizing and realizing this in the midst of daily life, rather than going off to a monastery. So that's the premise. Yeah.
Because have you been to a monastery lately?
Right.
Well, it's great, but we can't all do that.
Yes, and for those who do that, that's another approach. Right. But is there another approach? And what I discovered in kind of traveling around and being interested in this world of meditation, psychology, and eventually the talk I gave at Dharma Teachers was on neuroscience and meditation and awakening. So, really bringing kind of contemporary approach of scientific inquiry, which means what's true, what works, what's actually happening. Are people really getting this? Is this an imagination, or is this really changing people's lives in a way that they're not only waking up, but they're growing up? That's a kind of maturity, integrity, compassion. That is this possible? And I think where I am now is that it really is possible in the midst of daily life. It's almost like the next natural stage of human development. Mm-hmm. And
evolution.
So it's evolution and potential. It's esoteric only in that means that it's it's paradoxical, meaning it's not the normal way we learn something by using our minds or informational is not the way you learn this.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like feeling how you ride a bicycle.
Did you come up with this way of presenting things, or did you study with somebody who did it? Because you have some simple exercises that, like, I don't think I've ever been to a workshop or a presentation where someone just said, okay, we talked for a moment about stuff, but then it's like, okay, let's try this. Okay, feel that? Feel that? And everyone's like, and literally 3 minutes later, everyone's reporting the adjectives. I said, as a teacher, it's like a high five. It's like everyone's reporting all these adjectives of openness, freedom, peace, various things they got just from trying something right there in that moment. Now, did you develop these techniques, or?
I mean, in looking from the beginning for what is the goal, what is the result, what is this thing that people call awakening, or what is that about, what does that give you, what does that mean, what changes, what's absent, what's present. I started following that interesting premise to see who it is that was talking about this, and so then I kind of went around from Zen to Vipassana to Tibetan Buddhism, both the Dzogchen and the Mahamudra, which is really where I ended up. Kind of many of the practices are based on Mahamudra, but some are Advaita, some are from Taoism, but there's
and you can see that thread through them all.
Yeah, and some are just, and then once you start to have a shift into this, what's called recognition or realization, then it's kind of like awareness shows itself to itself. So there starts to be this curious, almost like way that, oh, well, wait a minute, first I'm here and I'm contracted and identified, and then I'm open, and then the openness is embodied, and then the openness is open-hearted, and then it's related. Okay, but now I'm stuck in here, but now I'm blissed in, I'm spaced out. So how do I get from here to here? And is there an intentional way, or is that efforting kind of a doing that keeps you from letting go? So those kind of curious questions, but I didn't approach it intellectually. I approached it like a palpable, experiential experiment. Like, let's find out, let's do it. Let's find the way to shift into it, and find a way to live from it in the middle of, for me, New York City. So kind of like might as well go.
That's where I started. It's
there.
like, that's what I said. If you can walk down the street there, you've got it.
Yeah. And so now I do it in the subway, and it works just as well.
That was the beginning of my practices in New York. Yeah. It's a great opportunity.
Yeah.
So you did put this together yourself. But one thing that I'm especially intrigued by, because of physicality, is something that I'm very active with, the kind of embodied person, and I do a lot of movement, and I work with a lot of physical modalities and posture for meditation, and how we communicate with our body, and how we can allow our body to move in certain ways that affects how we think and feel.
Right.
And you in this development, as you were pulling from all these ingredients and cooking your own stuff, you actually came up with kind of movements. It's a physical way. You have a journey from being in here to the heart, and you just talked about that progression.
Yes, that's right.
And then it's really, you ended up having us do an exercise, actually literally moving from here to the heart to out to, and you had physical movements we did, which I thought, for me personally, I thought there were two levels this learning goes in addition. Someone can say something, you can hear it, you can conceptualize it, you can even try moving your focus around, but when you add this physicality, for me, once I'm physically moving, it's like a mudra or something, it goes in my body in a different way with just you're just using hands and arms to kind of help us bring us into it, but I liked that physical commitment to it. And the second was watching it. You'll be up there, and I was saying, it's like he's conducting with his body, very fluid movement. And now you're doing it.
You're even starting
I
to
know.
talk with your hands more,
I talk a lot with my hands anyway. But because we
Yeah.
hear things, and that's one, I was
That's
mentioning
right.
this last
Yes,
night, that's one part of the
kinesthetic,
brain,
right.
but then we see you
See
do
things.
it, and visually
Yeah.
we get an impression. So there's the physical, the
Yes.
feeling, we hear the words, and then we see it. And so I thought it is a way of, your whole approach is about, let's just do this right now, there, feel
Yeah.
it. And so, and it goes in those three different modalities,
That's
and
right.
see, hear, feel is something that,
Yeah.
I'm trained in those being our
That's right.
three primary sunscapes. So I was very, I was impressed, but I liked, it was fun.
Yeah.
It makes it, as opposed to, I am going now,
Yes.
I got to get enlightened by 2:00, it was really fun. I enjoyed
yeah.
this very much. So,
Yeah.
and your personality is also, you
Yeah.
can get Woody Allen-y sometimes. There's a little,
Just let it-
there's a little, or other, you had
Yeah.
other comedy people you were doing in there. But so you want to talk about this physicality of it a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, like you, I've also been, always been kind of physical and played a lot of sports. So I would say, one little story would be one way that I discovered this was that I was an ice hockey goalie. When I was
were
very
you?
young. Yes.
How are your knees?
Yeah, they're okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the sitting on the cushion
My
was
nephew
worse
was
for
an
me.
ice hockey goalie.
Okay.
But
Yeah. So I had discovered the way that I played best was I would shift into another mode of perception. And then I heard on TV somebody talking, a commentator talking about a quarterback, and they said, he's got eyes in the back of his head. And I was like, 14, so I was like, he's got eyes in the back of the head. How do you do that?
How do you get that?
How do you do that? So I literally started developing this way. I thought, okay, well, I can go this far. Let me continue bringing my awareness around this way. And as soon as I brought my awareness around to this 360-degree panoramic awareness, I opened up my panoramic and peripheral vision, and then I dropped down into my body, and there became this natural, almost field of awareness where I felt like a cat. And then I would just trust from there that, I'd see somebody take a slap shot, but there'd be all these legs, and all of a sudden I'd just trust and my hand would shoot out and the puck would be in there. And I figured, okay, so rather than being hyper-vigilant and one-pointed in this efforting mind, learn how to relax, but not relax like go to sleep.
Right.
But there's another mode of perceiving that's called, that people know called the zone, or being in the flow.
Right.
So the flow state,
This was 14?
this was the 14.
At
yeah.
14 you did
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Oh, well, see, he's been doing it a long time.
Yeah, so so I felt this, and then I was explaining it to a friend who actually lives in LA and is going to come over
Oh, okay.
in a
Oh,
pick
the
me
one
up in a
that's
little
coming.
while.
Okay.
Yeah, so and I was saying like, I said, how'd you do that, man? And I started to put it into words, and he was like, oh, cool. He was like,
It's like, okay, great, happy
like,
for you. Want a beer?
Okay, I didn't really want that information. I had no
Right,
idea what
right.
you're talking about.
Right.
I was just asking you, like,
Yeah.
just say something normal, But,
You know-
but then, one of the seniors on the team overheard me, and the next week he came in and gave me this book, Zen and the Art of Archery.
Oh, yeah.
He said, "Here, kid, this is what you were talking
Wow.
about." Yeah.
Wow. At that age, he was
Yeah.
new to read that.
'Cause
So
that was,
you got, yeah. Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance. When I was
Right.
at Duke in the art class, she never told us how to paint. She just sat there reading Zen and the Art of Motorcycle Maintenance.
really
As we
good,
were
so-
like trying to paint. She might come over and go, see that there? Okay. And she'd go back and read it. But and then I
Yeah.
did Zen and the Art of Archery. Oh, that is so interesting.
Yeah.
Well, what was, this panoramic vision, and that is
Yeah.
key to
Yeah.
what you do.
Yes.
But then the dropping down
dropping
into the
down,
body
head to
part. Now,
heart.
what made you at the age of 14 go, because you just had to do something
Yeah,
physically?
because
That's why you thought to
I
come
felt that shift, that when you open and then are doing something physical, that all of a sudden the feeling is as if you're in every cell of your body,
Right.
and the center is more like your gut, your dantian, or your heart, and you actually are optimally functioning without thinking about thinking.
Right.
So all that information is processed in, and then I realized, okay, people talk about it in certain activities like sports or art, or
Right.
but can we do this in everyday life?
Right.
In relating,
Right.
in creating? Because often you'll see sports stars who get in the zone, when they come out of it, they're actually the opposite. Or you'll see artists or writers who can get in the zone, and then all of a sudden their life is a mess because the rest, they don't feel the way they feel in that. So you almost become compulsively addicted to that which takes you
and
out
I'm
of
an
yourself.
artist, so I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
I there are many actors who, when they're acting, they feel so alive.
That's right.
And they will wait tables
Exactly.
and do things for the rest of their life just to get another few minutes of that hit, of that high.
Yes.
And what I try to say as a meditation teacher, that's available in each moment.
Right.
But they think, no, I have to be on stage. They get that zone experience. Oh, two things come to mind. One was the way I understood that samurai were trained was that they're not looking at where their opponent is or where the weapon is.
That's
They
right.
actually go into a broad focus.
That's right.
Where they're not even looking at them.
Yes.
They're literally just kind of, and you go into an almost feeling of the environment, and it's this kind of broad focus. And I remember playing with that myself and realizing that there were times in which I was doing that.
Right.
Driving
Right.
can be one.
Exactly.
Sometimes in driving, I'm just watching the kind of movement of everything, the flow of the visual field. But what naturally happens is this extension out into space in a way where I'm part of the space.
Yes.
I'm just one of the elements moving in it, but this relational experience with everything, it's like we're all one organism and I'm one part of this larger organism. Yeah. But this getting back and bringing it into the body part,
that's right.
I do find that what's wonderful is that mindfulness is coming into the Western world, and it's a revolution in a sense is starting there, and that's my hope for our planet at this time.
Yeah.
But often the way in, it is our minds, it's how we're thinking, and the embodied aspect of it is sometimes just left out.
That's right.
Yeah, and that's something that's so important to me, and one of the reasons I adore what you do. It's just what you do is really like my style. I love it. But that you have said every time you talk about that panoramic awareness and then bringing it into the body. And I think of it as including, like, kind of the way I just described it, but it's wonderful that you make that in your journey, that it's got to happen. And so could you just talk about that progression a little more?
So often when people start with mindfulness, which is wonderful for stress relief and for kind of traditional preliminary practices,
and relaxation is wonderful. That's the aspect of the body people will like.
That's right. But that some of the tools of the initial preliminary practices are actually one-pointed focus, using using attention of the moving mind, and yet the effortless mindfulness or more advanced practice, you actually have to learn the other set of skills. You have to learn not only opening your awareness so that you're in the zone and trusting this non-conceptual intelligence that is not checking with thought constantly and is not a quick mind, but actually is a mind that is made of more spacious awareness. So
which goes to the Dzogchen Mahamudra.
The Mahamudra, or even Zen, big sky mind, this kind of thing. And that the small sense of self, which is made of, or the ego center, which is made of thought referring to thought and creates a little character looking out of your eyes that feels like it's looking out of your eyes and feels like it's an entity.
And he does a lot of funny riffs on that.
That is one way of functioning. That's one way of operating. But it's the little thought-based ego center is just too small to deal with a full emotional life, a full life of intimacy and and joy in the world. So we're not just, so I realized that often the first step of stepping out of this ego center and into kind of either a meditative state or even a bigger pure awareness is only partway there, but often important. So the usual progression is calm, use focus to calm or calm to focus, and then that will calm the chattering mind, and then to open up your meditative awareness or discover that there's kind of a bigger, more open mind, open heart, which is literally the feeling you get, not an intellectual idea. And then you're kind of, so the way I have people move is actually to feel like awareness can unhook from thought and then open to the space.
And then unhook from thought. He always puts it that way, and I like that very much.
Yeah.
It's like, it's there, just unhook.
Yeah.
It's very gently. It's just like, he just says it, and everyone goes, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
And I thought it was like so perfect. Anyway, keep going. Sorry.
And one of the strange premises that I realized I didn't even realize I was doing in the beginning. I thought in the beginning, well, okay, but the one who's unhooking is not the doer, is not the ego that's unhooking. But then I just kind of kept going, and then I realized, oh, I see what I'm doing. I'm actually asking the awake person the awareness that they already are, that they've already been, to unhook awareness from thought, and that awareness, or that awake, empty, lucid clarity, has a life already and actually has the ability to move and has a kind of intentionality. It isn't just passive. And that often it's been defined as this passive, recognition of awake awareness, that you sit in a meditative state,
right,
and it's lovely and it's free of suffering. But then one day back to work from a long day retreat, and you have the only option you have is operating from ego center. So this is really about upgrading the operating system.
Ding, ding, ding. Our little tech drop there.
Gotta use some of these
Gotta apply
modern
it, appeal to
metaphors.
everyone. Yeah, okay.
But literally, stepping out of the current little small sense of self, opening to space, and then discovering that the awareness actually is discovering an aware mind, what's called nature of mind, big sky mind, pure awareness that is already aware and has already been aware, both outside and then.
And before you go on, and there's someone could never have. I just want to say this. This isn't just like, hi, I've been on a spiritual path for 12 years now, and now I'm trying chapter number 17. Someone could walk in and have never done anything and go through this. So it's appealing kind of directly in that way.
Yeah.
But one thing I want to say about when you're talking about big sky mind, there's a space. I want to just kind of emphasize the spatiality of it. That we're here. No, we're not. You really get the sense that no, you are. So that sense of that extended space of self. I just wanted for someone who could just walk in there and go, oh, my awareness is that big. How can that be? And again, he takes you right there experientially, like in 2 seconds. Yeah. So, but now continue on. So you go out.
Yeah, and just to say what you're saying, because it's the most important point, is that this awakeness that's both embodied and open-hearted is already here. And it's a consciousness that's already installed in us. And it doesn't have to be developed or created, but we haven't known how to access it. So that's been my whole project. It's like, wait a minute, why do you have to do this and this and this to get to here? Because once I'm here, let me feel what it's like to lose it, and then let me go back and shift back into it. Oh, well, I didn't have to do those 8 things to get back. Let me see what is the map of consciousness experientially, and then how do you navigate it? And then how do you translate it to somebody and make the language more contemporary and more experiential?
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I've been doing, is like translating, not just text, but you know, like.
What's your New Yorker direct get it? Is it here?
Yeah.
Just get to the point, right?
Yeah, let's go.
Do what's needed and no more.
Yeah, and do it like you learn, take care of your consciousness the way you learn to eat, or whether you go to the gym or you do, yoga posture. It's like, sometimes I call it the yoga of awareness. So but the interesting thing is, which is what I'm coming back to now, is that what it is that's moving and what it is that knows this ground, which is pure awareness, is only awareness. And that's why most people have missed it, is because we're trying to effort it, we're using our will, we're using our mind, and we're even using attention of the mind, which actually can't see it, nor can mindful witnessing see the pure awareness. So even that which pulls back and is able to observe thought can't turn around. It actually has to be that which is already made of the non-local awareness that's locally attached or identified. That can drop, that can open from thought, and then discover itself as kind of non-local awareness and be aware of itself without thought and without senses. It just doesn't have to do it that long. It doesn't have to be a long retreat or a half-hour meditation. It just needs to plug in or surrender or tune in to that which has already been aware. And then as that which is aware, the next important move is the intentionality realizes, oh, form is emptiness, now emptiness is form. So the awareness realizes its aliveness, and the feeling of the ocean appearing as waves of consciousness is where you drop back in, and you have it's like you've shifted figure ground of what's awake, what you're aware of. Then you can be aware of all your thoughts, feelings, sensations, but you're aware from this huge, loving, supportive, inside, outside is the same, and you're free of the anxious, perpetually dissatisfied commentator. So
that's it. We could just stop right now. That pretty much did it.
It's just basically.
God, so many things I want to say there.
And then one more thing is that, so then when there's this embodied kind of continuous field of awareness that's primary, the anxiety is gone about anxiousness and the judging, but you still have your full range of emotions. You're not detached, but you just
start walking into walls or anything.
You're actually in a flow state, which is more optimally functioning, and you've dropped not only to your body, but you've dropped from head to heart mind. Mm-hmm. So there's a feeling that people, even if I don't describe it, they say.
And I love the term heart mind.
Yeah.
It's juicy. What I was going to just say, two things real quick. One was when you just described that, and I applauded, but you talked about the kind of loving support of it. Yes. And I remember I came up to him after, in an intermission, or maybe it was after the Friday night thing you did.
Yes.
And I said, when he was describing it, and I thought, when I first learned Buddhism and they were talking about refuge, I thought that's what they were talking about, because I thought that is the ultimate refuge.
Yes. And it is the ultimate refuge, that even in Buddhism you start with Buddha, and then you start with your guru or your teacher. You take refuge in the Buddha, the Dharma, the Sangha, and then you start, with, and then you realize, the teacher's outside. Oh no, the teacher's inside. And then some Tibetans do there's a deity, but then the deity melts into you, and then you arise as that. So ultimately, it is in the systems. Ultimately, the refuge is the Tao or the Buddha nature, true nature.
But it's like a direct path to the ultimate refuge. One thing you just said, again, before I applauded, because that was really all we need to hear. The ways, and this is really key, the ways we go about attempting to get there get in the way of it. It was
That's right.
like when I first learned about jhana practice.
Yes.
The way to get a jhana is to not want one.
Right, okay,
Like
yeah.
the wanting of it, you have to let go of the wanting to have the experience.
Yeah.
And so there is you've used the word surrender.
Mm-hmm.
Some people have a reaction to the word surrender depending on your life experience. I always, you could say accept. I remember when I first started trying to find words for experience, I went, oh, it's just about having no resistance, or, but you just went through all the different ways or methods or strategies that people use. And
Right.
I want you to just go into that a little bit more about how those aren't helpful. And you did just describe it, but maybe other ways of saying, other ways of putting breadcrumbs here to bring
Right.
people to
Yes.
this, what you've come up with, going, hey, I've gone there, I've gone back.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, the particular approach that I use is kind of an inquiry approach or a looking approach. And what it uses is it finds awareness directly that unhooks or steps out of. So the metaphor is almost like we're living in a cloud of our mind and emotions, or mind-body emotions, and we're trying through effort, will, positive thinking, attentional strategies, psychological cleaning up, all these things of the relative world to try to find awakening or awakeness or awake awareness, but those things can't know them. So it's like the eye can't hear, the ear can't see, attention can't know awareness. So
Attention can't know where. See, this is the thing that I think a lot of us need to hear.
Yeah.
I know I work with people, and
Yes.
and I see this, and I thought, the very tool they're using to get something
Exactly.
is what's getting in the way.
That's right.
And you're putting this in a. So keep
Yes.
going.
and to say that traditionally that's fine, that attention can be a way to calm the relative mind, or the chattering mind, so that the awake awareness, which is already here, will come forth. But as long as you know that you have to let go of the raft once you reach the shore, that's fine.
I love. That's a great analogy.
I have no problem with that.
Because I learned that in the jhana practice.
Yeah.
You can say, okay, I'm going to do this, and then I have to let go.
Then you
of
have to
it.
let go.
Yeah.
Because it's getting you to a place. Otherwise, the metaphor is like you're doing push-ups to strengthen yourself, but the real goal is to walk up the mountain.
Right.
So you're using attention, but attention won't help you when you get to, once you've surrendered, you've actually surrendered from attention.
Yeah.
You've surrendered from the Dharma talks, from all the eight of this and 4 of that, and all the learning of the lists and the understanding, any intellectual understanding. You literally have to step out of that into what it is, into this non-conceptual knowing, this wisdom, awareness-based identity that is aware. First you're aware of it, which is called recognition, and then you're aware as it. You realize, am I aware of this spacious awareness, or am I aware from the spacious awareness? Is the spacious awareness aware of thoughts, feelings, and sensations formerly known as me, or the center of me?
Right.
So the unique thing that's not on the map of Western consciousness is this nature of mind, or awareness-based knowing, awareness-based identity, because we're so much about I think therefore I am, and it has defined us, and we've
limited us.
I mean, it's amazing. We honor thought and all the amazing capacities that it has, and this is not about dumbing down or anti-intellectualism.
Right.
This is about upgrading the whole system to wisdom mind, which is awareness-based. So that becomes the curious thing. What do you mean? Okay, wisdom, okay, we get like a sense of it, but no. Awareness-based knowing, awareness-based identity. Awareness embodied, open-hearted, awareness-based identity from which you're operating from heart-mind rather than head-mind. So you're living at home in your heart and using Wi-Fi to the files in your brain. In the office of your brain. I had to do it.
Sorry. I know. No, it's great with our audience. It's like we all go, can we get Wi-Fi here? You have Wi-Fi all the time.
Wi-Fi, if you live at home in your heart. Otherwise, most of us live in our office of our head. And we're trying...
We don't have Wi-Fi down, we have Wi-Fi up.
That's right.
I guess so directional Wi-Fi.
Or we have we're cut off from the Wi-Fi of our emotions because our little mini-me, the little thought-based identity can't bear an emotional life. So we have to repress and defend and contract, and we get either repress too much, we go into depression, or too much strategizing, we go into anxiety. So that as soon as awareness unhooks from that cloud and from that center of thought-based identity and steps into, first just out of into absence, which in Zen they say don't know mind or not knowing, but then the key is discovering the not knowing that knows.
There, you writing that down?
So there's an awareness that is alert. It's called empty clarity, or emptiness that is knowing, Rigpa, or in
alert, awake,
Buddha
present.
nature, Turiya Tita. It's called in Hinduism. Tao is the universal mind or consciousness, but it literally is. That all sounds like big words and stuff, but I'm like, as you say, American New Yorkers like, yeah, but check it out.
Boo.
Like, you call it whatever you want to call it, but I'll show you how to get there, and you tell me what the territory's like.
Right.
And then, as you said, 80% of people off the street can get this in an hour and a half.
Yeah. Well, each exercise kind of takes you directly. So let's give me an example. Let's just have an example of one of these exercises. One of them ones where you use something physical.
Okay.
Not the thought ones.
Okay. All right. So here's So one simple way of getting this feeling of shifting your awareness out of the identification with your mind, which creates this little self-looping identity, is to have awareness. Just again, I'm talking to you, the awareness. I'm talking to you, the awareness, and the awake awareness. So if you think, well, how am I going to unhook awareness from thought? I've never done that. I don't know if I can do that. And that is correct. You cannot do it, but awareness can do it. So you just have to be, sometimes I call it the Columbo approach. It's like...
The Columbo approach?
Yeah, so like, oh, by the way, before I leave, I just unhook awareness and have it drop.
Oh. By the way, as an aside.
As an aside, just without thinking
do that,
about it. And then you'll be awake, so we'll see you next time. So just simply have awareness, which is identified or attached to thought. Simply unhook and step back. And then see what it feels like if awareness, which is the center of knowing, drops and knows your smile from within your smile, knows your jaw from within your jaw, without looking up to thought and without stretching or looking down from thought. Have awareness that knows directly drop into your throat, know your throat from within, and then feel awareness drop below your neck. And feel your upper torso or come into your heart space. And you can smile and breathe and just feel what it's like to directly perceive your body from within without orienting to thought and without going to sleep. Just feel this direct, awareness-based, embodied open-hearted, non-thought-based knowing, which is kind of alert. It's aware of space, it's aware of aliveness, and it's aware of awareness, which is aware by itself. Just feel that relief and notice this new non-conceptual, embodied way of shifting into another dimension of your consciousness. See what's absent that was there, and then see the qualities of presence that start to kind of shimmer. What do you notice?
What I love, and one thing I love about that is the not checking up.
Mm-hmm.
You say looking up?
Yeah, not looking up.
I'm not looking up, and I'm not
looking
down here
from,
going, oh look
at
that's
that.
happening there. I'm not this witness watching this, which is
And you're not stretching.
what we do a lot, like,
Yeah.
okay, I feel my knee, and now I'm
from here.
labeling here, but it's you literally talk about being there.
Yeah.
And for me that's like juicy. I mean, it's like, oh, it's nice. It's full, it's nice, it's warm, there's love, and the not looking up, looking down is free, because you realize it's kind of like the Wizard of Oz is behind there trying to move all the gears to make that thing work, and it's like he's not there anymore.
As soon as you
and
drop
so
out
you
of
can
that.
just allow it to be something without all the stuff there, and that's nice.
Yeah.
And then take us out.
Yeah. So then,
Take us out.
so then, interestingly, there's a bunch of different ways, kind of like you talk. I'm like you. I'm aware of different learning types. So some people are kinesthetic, some people are emotional, some people are more mental, some people are visual, some people are auditory. So I use different doors for. And some people were like, oh, that one was really good, and that one didn't work so well. But by the time we do short little
everyone does everything, something's going to
starting to happen,
start a
and they get
movement.
to the same place. And then, interestingly, they use their own words to describe it, and they don't need to use the vocabulary that I'm starting with.
And that's the style of his teaching. He'll kind of guide you to an experience, and then literally, rather than talking about it, he has everyone go around the room and report their words. And what's nice always about that is one, as a student, you get to hear what everyone else is doing. Not that I'll have some of that or what he is, but it helps open your idea to other things it can be, or maybe it was words you hadn't thought to describe of your own experience. As the teacher sitting there, I was going, way to go, like, you hear that? You hear all that stuff? That is so good. It's like, there's popcorn happening in this room, and throughout the workshop you'd hear someone at the beginning going, awareness, what? You'd hear them at the beginning, and at the end there were a couple people at the end going, oh, and you get these ahas, and as a teacher I was high-fiving him and going, that is so cool, because that's your, as a teacher, the moody type, you get this like joy at that, because they walked out the door with something that's going to shift their life in a good way.
And they're giving them tools to be able to do it themselves. So there's like these short practices, and I've written this book about it.
Your book. We almost forgot. There's a book. You want a book on this? There's a book on this. What's your book
There's
called?
A book on this
Shift into
Freedom: The Science and Practice of Open-Hearted Awareness.
All right. Got that?
So
Shift into freedom.
And then currently there's an audio.
And it's a very perfect title for what this is, too.
Yeah.
It is exactly a shift into freedom.
Yeah.
And there's an audio?
Yeah, and the audio currently is the audio of the practices, not the audio of the book.
Oh, you
So
didn't want to
basically-
sit there for 12 hours and read your book?
I ended up doing that, and that will come out.
Oh, okay.
But
I always like to hear the
Yeah.
teacher, like I want to hear Pema Chodron read her book.
Yes.
You know, I want to
Yeah.
hear the word, I don't want the actor they hired.
that's right.
I want to hear you
Yes.
describe it, because you also get that kind of, the energy of how it comes in.
Yeah.
So when you
So-
say it's the audio of just
Yeah.
the practices.
So the audio of the practices is, kind of the teaching style is, like the teacher, it's like I'm introducing the students to their own inner teacher,
Right.
and when I'm showing or pointing them to look within, it's not look up here, but look back within you. And then once you discover this non-conceptual awareness, by being able to speak from there, it's really not even about the words. It's about speaking from non-conceptual heart-mind, so that you start to rewire functioning and living from this new way of knowing and being, so that you can start to make it a normal thing, and then in the middle of your life you can start to just walk down the street, go to work, have relationships, hang out, have fun, and from a continuous awakening, losing it. And part of the small glimpses is, of course, initially you're going to recognize, realize, and lose it, and then the practice is re-recognize. So training to re-recognize and return and remain, and then speak and walk and talk from there, and then lose it, and then no big surprise, just re-recognize.
Mm-hmm.
And then again, and the training can be done with these small glimpses in the midst of your day.
At the workshop we did yesterday, I thought, and again, I'm always coming in as a student, but also as a teacher, appreciating the way something's being taught and learned, and what's effective. And I know in our teacher trainings, I've done a lot of teacher trainings where we do dyads, where people break off and you practice, you teach that person and they teach you back, and there's something about that interaction that's a very powerful way to learn. And the dyads that we did in your workshop, I thought were so important for this integration
that's right.
that you're talking about. A lot of retreats at the end will have a talking circle at the end, and the idea is that we're making the transition from a silent practice to speaking in the world, but it's not an active exercise, it's people expressing stuff, and so it's kind of kind of putting a foot in the water going out. But what was so powerful, and he had 5 questions that we ask each other, but we all the conversation, you're sitting across someone who just did this workshop all day, and you're coming from this place, so you're having to. And I remember when I first had to leave retreat, say to do an audition, and I'd be like, that brain didn't function. I was going, oh, they said that. I feel my sensation, and I was like a little slow, and I couldn't, I had to learn to kind of ride a bike again. But what was so, I'm impressed by these exercises. We're sitting in here and we have to ask the questions, and we have to do it 3 times, like go through 5 questions 3 times, and you're like, 5 questions 3 times, right? And you go through and you ask these questions, and we're both sitting here in this place, and it doesn't matter what is said. It's about literally someone asking, and and the questions are about you tuning into your experience and reporting it.
To this, once we've learned how to look, so it's kind of inquiry rather than questions for your mind.
Right.
So you get the question like, where is the hearer located?
Yeah.
And then you have to unhook awareness from understanding the thought, and then look back, where is the hearer? And you keep looking through your mind until you discover the non-centered ego awareness, and then you speak from there about whatever you find.
And you're doing that sitting across from someone, so you get that social intimacy, and that was the word I
Yes.
had for it. It's very intimate. You're just sitting
Right.
across. Most people may or may not have done these dyads. So you're going into your own experience, but you're here in a relational way. And if you just heard what he said, you're having to describe something that isn't describable.
That's right.
You're going,
somebody else.
it's free. It's like when he just asked me when to go to heart. What are the words? Good.
Good.
I kind of
Very
like,
good.
like your friend.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, good. So, and then you go through that series, and then by the time you've done it the third time, there's you relax into the intimacy with the other person. Words start to come, and a journey of like where it is may shift and
Right.
change, and there's no attachment to it. So you really do learn a rewiring of an integrating this while you speak it, while you're holding an intimate connection
That's
with
right.
somebody else. And I was just very impressed with I thought people could walk out the door and not go, oh, that was good, all right,
Right.
let me leave that, now go back to,
Right.
that I really felt people could walk out the door and into their life with
Yeah.
it. And that was just from a few hours.
Yes, that's right. And so the whole style, as we're saying, is to do a workshop or a play shop, or
A play shop, yay.
or rather than a retreat, calling it a return. So you're not retreating from. You don't have to go out into a physically silent place, though that's a nice thing to do once in a while. But in this training, you find the silence that's already here and the stillness no matter where you are. So just find it now, then you can find it anywhere. And once you find it, you realize it's not only silence, but it's silence that includes sound. It's non-dual silence. It's stillness that includes movement. And it's silence and space that's awake and that's also alive and embodied and dancing as energy and interconnected with everyone and everything. So that field of the unity, the awake consciousness, that's just shifted from it being an experience to this nature of mind being the experiencer, and that everything being both one and many and nothing and everything is not a philosophical or poetic nice thing to hear, that this is what other people are saying who are just learning. So it's really learning how to look or shift or tune in. You can use that's where you can surrender or let go, but not only let go, but then find or hand off the baton to that which is already awake, and then being that which is showing up as your full humanity. So you're not transcending, you're transcending and including, and then feeling like the goal is really living a full human life, not escaping.
Yeah.
Right?
Living into and through your
Yeah.
life. It's always available.
That's right.
Personally now,
Yeah.
ask you a question. So you have a psychology practice, right?
I have. I don't now. I'm doing more.
Now, because of his book,
No.
because of his book, he's really just traveling around doing this more of the time. Is that?
I'm doing this, these kind of trainings, and I have individual sessions with people, but now they're around fine-tuning embodied awakening.
Because, what I was going to ask was if you had a psychology
Yes.
practice, which you have had over the years,
Yes.
how this has affected
Right.
your work with that.
Yes.
Because how many people go to a psychologist and they're talking about this? That's
right.
not usually, it's
That's
usually,
not usually
how
the
did that
case.
make you
That's
feel?
right.
And, it was your
Or your
mother, or
personal
your father.
history.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the personal history is still part of the, fullness of your humanity, but this, awake awareness has been referred to as the ultimate medicine. So.
Did it shift did your whole practice, because you've been developing this for
Yes,
years. This
that's
didn't
right.
just
No.
happen when the book came out. The
That's
book
right.
was a result of your years of doing this.
Yes.
So you had a psychology practice as you were working on this.
Yes, I kind of did a joint degree with spirituality and psychology,
Oh.
and actually went off on a fellowship to Sri Lanka, India, and Nepal first, so that I had, I came back
So
and
from
then
the
do the
beginning
then
you
did the
had that
training.
connection.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so early on was doing mindfulness-based psychotherapy, but then it developed into more awareness-based psychotherapy, and then
I
more
see.
awakening-based.
So it was always
Yeah.
integrated in
Is
your
always
practice.
integrated somewhat, but my own development, as many of us, started with more meditation-oriented, and then as I developed these kind of syntheses or these, more direct glimpse practices, I started to realize, okay, well, let's introduce people into this awareness-based true nature, this kind of bigger sense of self, and then have that come and basically love up or
Love up.
love up the trauma and the
Sounded like a hippie.
That's right. Kind of love, compassionately relate or embrace the traumatic parts or the shadow parts or the emotions that couldn't be tolerated by the ego or the old, or liberate the repressed contents that are too much for a small sense of self. So in some ways, you can really only grow up to a certain level, and then you have to wake up and what I call wake up, and then wake in, and then wake out to life. So 3 levels of awakening in order to continue to grow up or live a full human life. That even, those people who I've dealt with in psychotherapy and in life who have literally the most developed egos, the most successful human beings, who have all their ducks in a row, who are successful and have family lives and they're physically well and they're come to me and say, is that all there is? I'm miserable. Because they have perpetual dissatisfaction because they're living from this yes but
Critical
critical
mind. Yeah.
that can function
Perfectionist.
and learn to control, and some, most of us don't do that well, but
Right.
some people who, even those who do it well and have lived the dream, are when they relax for one moment are miserable,
Right.
because they've actually developed. The smarter you are, the more difficult it becomes.
The more
because
complex you've
the
developed.
more complex and anxious
Yeah.
you are,
You've developed
because
a
your mind is saying, yeah, but what about this? and what
really
about that, and what
intricate
about this?
system you've
Yeah.
developed to function
That's
at
right.
that level. And
Yeah.
I'm gonna.
We tried that.
I can understand that. I relate to that. I am a card-carrying member of that group.
Yeah.
Do you train psychologists? Do you do
Yes.
workshops for? Because I think that
Yeah.
is a very powerful thing that the whole psychology profession just really. And I know there's more mindfulness based. And I know a woman in Cambridge who runs a mindfulness psychology
Yeah.
group. And there is more mindfulness coming into psychology. But you're bringing in another
Yeah, this is another dimension.
And
I was doing it on my own and had kind of developed my own kind of awakening based therapy, but then
awakening based therapy.
But-
Love it. There's another title there.
Yeah.
All right, go ahead.
But then I met about 5 years ago and was introduced to a type of therapy from a therapist called IFS therapy, Internal Family Systems is the name of it, but it's not necessarily your family inside. But Dick Schwartz had developed this system, which basically was my system except backwards. In other words, he would introduce you immediately to the parts of yourself that were suffering, and then have you step back to realize, to ask, are you aware of that part? Is that part aware of you? How do you feel toward that part? And the you started to become, he found like what he called grounded being or true self. All of a sudden, all the parts that you usually identified with would be seen, but it wasn't even from a mindful witness. It literally was more what he called true nature.
Right.
And then he really did a fine job of delineating the types of parts and their relationships of, hidden parts or shadow parts or exiled or child parts, hurt parts, and then protectors, and then managers, and then firefighters that act out. But
firefighters, managers, this is
yeah,
great.
so
This
it's
is
a whole
interesting.
really intricate
It's really
system.
interesting.
That's similar to some other systems.
Yeah.
But the unique thing was the self. But he hadn't, in any detail, developed what the self was. He would just trust that you'd go there.
Right.
And so then I presented at this conference just this last year, and he sat in the back and went, "Let's go to lunch."
That's the missing ingredient.
And now we're going to
Right.
do a.
You're going to work together.
We're going to work together. We're going to do
Perfect.
a retreat in Italy.
Perfect. Well, there. Are you a psychologist? You would like to go to Italy? Perfect, because, as you teach this and help everyone,
Yes.
and so people on a spiritual path will come
Right.
and drink the water and learn or whatever. But once you can kind of help the people who are helping people,
That's right.
that's got such
Yes.
potential
Yeah.
there, and you're coming in on not just the people who are helping people, because you're helping meditation teachers
That's
help
right.
people,
Yep.
but coming in that the whole psychology modality, and because that's so
Yeah.
established,
Yes.
and there's an incredible potential there. So I'm
Yeah.
very excited about
Yeah.
that. So that conference will be the first time you guys.
Yeah, we're going to do a retreat together in the spring.
Have you
And-
gotten together and written stuff out, or you just
No, we'll
kind of
probably end up just
doing it on the fly and work it out?
Yeah, but we'll work it out, and he has a part of the
You're
piece of
probably-
the pie, and I have another
You
piece, and
do.
we'll kind of do a
You-
little Mutt and Jeff kind of back and forth.
Yeah.
But the psychology piece is important for everyone, because otherwise many meditators end up in the spiritual bypass.
Yeah.
So they bypass, they think, and especially
I don't
there's a-
have to do this
Yeah.
other work.
there's either, like, the extreme forms are the people who are real strong meditators who actually repress the contents of their minds, and you can do this with a very strong, especially concentration practice, or even fine noting and observing, where you almost deconstruct, and then you think, well, I have no problems, but then you end up saying, and yet, what kind of tea would you like? All teas are the same. There's no need for a choice of tea, but tea will arrive and I will drink it. If there's an eye to drink it, drinking will happen. So there's a kind of, and as if that's the goal.
Right.
Or
To not feel. Like
Yes.
people will say, I want to get to where
Beyond
I don't
emotion,
feel.
right.
Yeah, and I'd say, well, no, you want to feel
Feel
fully. You
fully.
want to be informed by your
Yeah.
emotions and have them direct you, and not get down there and distort your perception of
That's right.
behavior in some way.
Yeah.
Or get where you're numbed out, or
That's
something
right.
like that.
Yeah,
So,
and then the other group, so that's kind of the numbed out, repressed emotion type. And then
Right.
the other one that is often the eddy, or the kind of cul-de-sac people get caught in, is stepping out of the mind into pure awareness and remaining as no self, or witnessing self. So that stage, there's a lot of people in that from certain traditions that you can observe. You're out of your suffering body, but you're also out of your humanity. And you get caught, and it gets very dry and very spacey and loses the juice. And unless they come back and include the body and become more open-hearted, they've kind of, sometimes I say it's like they were driving from the East Coast to the West Coast, and they got to the Grand Canyon, and they just set up camp there. But it's the desert, and the water's way down
there.
It's beautiful.
It's great. Look at the space.
Look at the space.
Look at that space.
I'm
My
the
God,
space.
it's so
And then-
big. Right.
There's not a lot of people. There's a few mules there.
Right. I don't talk to people, but great space.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So those are kind of some of the traps and detours that are possible. So this, like we were saying, as the metaphor was, both of us kind of said, you start to feel like a kid on the first day of your summer vacation.
Yeah.
That's the feeling. Like you want to be like curious and this is great. I don't have that suffering judge in my head, and yet I'm in my body and I respect other people. I'm not, spiritually bypassing in an adolescent acting out like there's no rules, it's all play, so I can just, do what I want with people, and act out in that kind of
get
guru
trouble
way.
in that way. Yeah.
So this is like, no, everyone's me. So of course I'm going to treat them with respect.
Right. And that's what I also, one thing I'm drawn to here, because I do like that. I think it should all be fascinating and fun.
Yeah.
And the whole, I know I'm watching my breath for the 10th hour, and, and I'm like, slit my wrist now. Although there's value there, I'm not dissing that as a path, but I do think that our sensory experience is fascinating. I do think that this, seeing the sensory experience from another perspective,
right.
I just find it, it's just like fascinating, exploring, childlike fun, like whee, like it's a ride, there's that freedom, but it's also, you're absorbing information, so it's not without wisdom. Your sense of self is larger, wiser, but still cool.
Fully human.
Right. It's cool, and that connection. And I do like how you emphasize, and I've probably said this now 5 times, but you don't say, okay, we're going to do this now. Next week we'll take it into the heart. Now next week we'll go out to. You literally right there. You'll stand up in front of everyone and you'll say, okay, we're going to do this. We're doing the mind now. Bring it down to the heart. Okay, now go out there. Now come in. Now you're going in and out. No.
So basically, I mean, there's many systems that talk about dimensions of consciousness that are primary and most relevant for awakening and stabilizing awakening. And I think I quote in my book that, Ken Wilber, who studied like everything in the world and has maps of the whole thing, says,
good maps.
If you look at wisdom traditions, you will see that they have 4 to 5 levels of consciousness that are primary. So what I do is I literally, and I'll do it now with my hands.
Do it. His hands. This is my favorite part.
I literally take people from the first level of consciousness, which is called everyday mind or ego consciousness, and then you either can step up into subtle mind, which is mindful witness, or drop down into subtle body, which is kind of where yoga consciousness and chanting and mantra and inner body bliss is feeling. And then you step out into the third level, which is pure awareness. And then the key is that awareness becomes aware of awareness. And that is without thought and out of your senses, that awareness is actually awarenessing, knowing itself as itself, just as awareness. And then as that awareness, so you've kind of have been aware of the spacious awareness, and now you're aware from the spacious awareness, which is a continuous field of awareness that's arising as aliveness within your body. So there's this feeling of spacious and pervasive, arising dance of consciousness that first feels like it's outside and in equally, and then there's a sense that it's also within everyone else and within you, and there's a feeling you've dropped from head to heart, and so there's this heart-mind online, which is open-hearted awareness, which is made of awareness. The ground is awareness, and it's meeting your humanness, and so there's a ground of being, which is the human being that's grounded in awareness, intelligence, and then the intelligence has this love or joy and bliss, and then from there you can create and relate. And you've kind of shifted systems from the first primary system of thought-based identity, and now you're in awareness, embodied, open-hearted identity. So you got that
That's
going
what
for
I
you.
wanted him to do. That was it. Listen, it's all fluid. The movement's fluid, and I love that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Thank you,
Was this
Stephanie.
fun? Was that fun? This was fun for
Yeah,
me.
me too.
Thank you so
Yes.
much. This is great.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
heart, applause, hug.
Great.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm good. All right.